Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 update by Heerak for November 24, 2020. We are 2 days away from Thanksgiving, which is on Thursday. Today is Tuesday. Um, yeah, and Americans are getting psyched for Thanksgiving. Um, Today is National Sardine Day. Um, Most people have had sardines. If you have not, you should try it. Nothing like French song. It's a beautiful language. Not without you. Love is like a universal language. Every country you go to, you'll find love. The family unit, father, mother, children. That's like in every country, wherever you go, you'll find it. One of the most romantic stories is Romeo and Juliet, the two 13-year-olds who fell in love and got married. Um, and they died tragically because the families were at war. As General Patton said, war is hell. Um, yeah, you know, I guess people say story of Romeo and Juliet is romantic because they were passionately in love for each other and they got married, right? They actually were married and they were able to consummate their love. Um, Gandhi also married when he was 13 with a woman who was 13. So they're similar with Romeo and Juliet in that way. I mean, obviously, they could biologically reproduce at 13. So in the Jewish tradition, 13-year-olds are considered adults. That's why you have bar mitzvah at that age, at a young age. Because when you can have children, biologically you are an adult. Um, and and people used to go to Oxford University and Cambridge University when they were 13. So that was a long time ago. Um, you know, and even today, you have people getting married, at a younger age. If you remember Breakfast at Tiffany's, if you see that movie, um, there was a young marriage there as well. So for most of world history and American history, marriage at a young age was seen as acceptable. Obviously, traditions change and people change. But biology is biology, right? I mean, people's physical biology makeup doesn't change. No matter how advanced the technology is, people age the same way. And so for most of human civilization, um, biological age was seen as determining adulthood, which is kind of an interesting historical factor. As you know, I'm a historian. Um, but I guess we live in the age that we live in the country that we live in, America. I mean, there are many countries in the world who have their own cultures and traditions. In Canada, until recently, the age of consent was 13. I think they raised it, but um, So, it's kind of interesting, how perceptions change. Um, so the question is, what is more deterministic, biological processes, or like people deciding what something is? That's an interesting question that maybe we talk about another time. Um, but we talk about love. A lot of people, their first love is like when they are in the teens. Um, and sometimes that's the most genuine love. I've known people who married their first girlfriend or boyfriend from like age 13 or 14 or 15. And they've been married all their life, and it's a strong love. The idea that you cannot fall in love at 13. I think that's just it doesn't jive with history. All of human experience until now, until recently, people are married until like 1950s even. Uh, some have married when they're 13 and have lived a very fruitful marriage life. Yeah, it's just modern notions that judge the past. We assume it to be accurate, but how come 99% of human history accepted certain things and we reject them now? Like Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf said you cannot even get married before 18, and that's ridiculous. Bar mitzvah, is basically passage of a boy to manhood, and that's at like 13. And it's based on thousands of years of history and tradition. And can you say that thousands of years of history is wrong? You know, um, can you say biology is wrong? It's you know, I guess with the coming of the environmental age, people are kind of interested in the environment and science. People are kind of beginning to question certain, you know, uh, presuppositions that we take for granted. So I think history is in a very deep flux right now. People's opinions are changing at the speed of light, and intellectuals and academics cannot keep up. There are several reasons for this. There's the internet age. So internet is very fast. You know, um, President Trump can tweet like 60 tweets in 5 minutes. He's like an expert tweeter. Um, and they can shift U.S. history, world history. This is the president of the United States, and if he's able to win after the recounts, then he'll be president for 4 more years. That could happen still, obviously, because Joe Biden didn't technically win yet, because there are still recounts going on by U.S. federal law, U.S. constitutional law. Joe Biden hasn't technically won yet. Um, and President Trump can continue for 4 years if the recounts prove that he won. I mean, and we're in a democracy, so we're open to this appeal process. So we don't know what's going to happen in January. History changes very very fast. Um, so the internet is one of the reasons why people's opinions are changing radically fast, and intellectuals, academics, journalists, media cannot keep up. Um, Second reason why things are changing really quickly is we have COVID-19. People are now faced with imminent death in ways that Americans have never been faced before. I mean, people say wear a seatbelt because if you get a car accident, you may die, and that's like an abstraction for most Americans. even now. I mean, people wear it, but they don't really think about that. But now with COVID-19, we have like over 2,000 people dying every day. Americans are kind of facing death uh, every day, and for for many every moment. And for them, it's a real thing. It's not intangible. It's not just out there. It's here because they can get COVID and die. Any American can. So people are faced with death in ways that they've never been faced with death before. And the struggle goes on in one's mind, right? You think about death, and you might not have ever thought about that, but now you think about that every day. That's like 330 million Americans, and that's like 100% of the British citizens, 100% of French citizens, 100% of Italy citizens. So there are things changing in the mind, in the psyche of every individual in the world, every citizen in America, which cannot be quantified yet. Because it's changing at the speed of light. Um, and that's happening not just among U.S. citizens. It's happening in the minds of every police officer, every Homeland Security agent, every FBI agent, every NSA agent, every U.S. Marshal, every Secret Service agent, every U.S. Marine, every Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force agent. And what's going on in the individual mind, they may not even fully grasp it because things are happening in the subconscious as well as in conscious. You know how when you love some woman, you may know that you love that woman, but sometimes you may not know. You're already loving her, but you haven't really grasped it yet, and it's you. You know, some of you may have experienced that, and then you come to realize, oh, I am in love. And that happens to women too. Um, because sometimes what you feel, you cannot fully comprehend it. Sometimes, even though you're feeling it, sometimes you're in denial, right? You don't want to be in love with somebody as you're falling in love, and you don't understand why you're falling in love. And some people have experienced that before. Um, love is a funny thing. It's not predictable. You don't always fall in love with the person you want to fall in love with. Sometimes you fall in love with a completely different woman, you know, from your type, you know. And if you saw a movie like while you were sleeping, you learn about the conflicts that can rise, right? Yeah, that's why you have conflicts in society because you have events like Paris falling for Helen of Troy, who, you know, Helen, who's wife of a Greek king, who pursues Helen, who has run away with Paris to Troy. Um, People do irrational things for love. And we see that throughout history. And yeah, it's human beings, we are funny a lot. All kinds of things happen because of feelings that you may not understand. And obviously, you try to control them, but sometimes human beings are not able to. And that's how some tragedies are born, right? Because if Helen of Troy did not run away with Paris to Troy, all those people in Troy would not have died because of love of one man for a married woman. So many people died. But that's not the only time that happened. We have a lot of examples of things like that in history. Um, yeah, maybe you've experienced something like that too. Um, it's COVID-19 is taking America by a storm, and people are experiencing things, feelings, thoughts, ideas in ways that they have never felt before. When you come into contact with death, when you are faced with death, you may look at the world differently. And although each individual may process things differently, there is a kind of zeitgeist, the spirit of the age, way that the trend of the society starts going spontaneously that you cannot calculate. And those things happen in moments of serious tragedy that individuals feel, but it is part of the collective experience. And we call that collective consciousness, right? So you may have heard that term before. And so we have 2,209 people died in the last 24 hours. That's one day. We have 2,229 people died in the United States of America. So my prediction is coming true. As you know, I'm Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District for November 8th, 2022 election. That's 2 years from now. I'm thinking about running as a Republican primary. I'm praying about it. I still have a long time to decide because the Republican primaries is in March 2022, and you basically have to file around January or February, you know. I have like at least a year to pray about and think about. Um, and as you know, I'm an intellectual. I'm an expert historian. I'm an expert theologian. I'm an expert of Jewish history. Um, I see history through an expert's eyes, not like normal people. Or, because I have insights because of the decades of research I've done. Um, so I see the history that is being made, that has just been made, through the eyes of an expert. And I'm a very good expert. So, um, I analyze, and that's instinctively part of who I am, because I've been trained to do that, and I've been doing it for so long as a historian. And that's why a lot of people watch this show. Dr. Fauci, I'm sure, is watching this show. Dr. Han, I'm sure, is watching this show right now. I'm sure Dr. Gottlieb is watching this show. I'm sure Dr. Sanjay Gupta is watching this show. I'm sure that, Bill Gates is watching this show. Um, because I am the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century, and they understand that. My predictions have consistently been correct, even when the world's greatest healthcare experts have been wrong. That's because I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. I see with multifaceted perspective as an expert in many different fields. So I tend to be more accurate than even like Dr. Fauci, because he only sees it through the eyes of an infectious disease expert. And COVID-19 is not acting like a normal virus, right? And so you need somebody who could think outside of the box to understand this and be able to predict accurately. And that's where I come in. I'm a divergent thinker because I have so many expertise that I could put together in different permutations, which mere mortals don't have the ability to do because they don't have all this expertise. Um, so you're very blessed that I exist in this world, and this show exists in this world, and it's a daily show to give you insight. Because without this show, even some of the top experts will not know where to go. They'll be, they'll be stumbling in the dark. Um, So you're very blessed that this show exists and I exist in the world at this particular time. And obviously, God had a plan, and God gave me all these different expertise, um, some of which I didn't even plan. But God guided my life to become experts in areas that I had not planned to be an expert. When I was in college, but I had become experts in these fields. And it's for this precise moment in history when the whole world, over 5 billion people need direction. God has prepared somebody to gain the expertise to be able to provide direction. You see? Um, so you're very blessed. In a sense, I am God's gift to you to give you guidance in this time where all the health experts don't really know where to go. Um, as you know, I'm predicting that at least 100 million people in the world will die by June 2021. I've always said that for months and months. I haven't changed that. And healthcare experts are beginning to see that I'm right and they were wrong. That this is far more serious than they had originally thought it would be. Um, and then revising the death predictions again and again and again, like every other day, because of what's going on. At first they said, well, a lot of people are getting COVID, but it's not going to be serious. And now they're revising that as hospitalizations grow and hospitals become overfilled. And they're like, well, there's hospitalizations, but not many people will die. And then now they're revising that because they see that death is beginning to spike. I've always said there's going to be a lot of death. So as you see, we were at 1,000 deaths per day in August. Now in November, we're like at over 2,000 deaths per day. And I'm predicting that we're going to go over 10,000 deaths per day in December. Um, because this is exponential growth, so death is going to grow exponentially. Um, I'm predicting that at least 1 million people will die in New York. And possibly over 1 million will die in New Jersey, and over 1 million will die in Pennsylvania. Look at the way they're going. And I'm predicting that over 1 million will die in this area, Washington, D.C. area that encompasses Southern Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And if you've been following the news or if you live in Montgomery County, Maryland, which borders on D.C., you are now aware of the new measures. They have required everybody who's walking outside to wear a mask. You get ticketed if you don't wear a mask outside. It's like mandatory requirement in Maryland, Montgomery County, because they're spiking. You know, and I predicted this, so my predictions are just coming true. Um, it's a blessing to be a Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century because I'm almost always right. Um, but it's a curse because I know it's coming, even when experts don't think it's coming, and then it's coming. You know. Um, yeah. So I mean, it's a burden in a way because I'm always right. Um, and so, but it's a burden that I'm happy to carry because I'm always right or almost always right. Um, I'm able to give you guidance to help you survive COVID. I can give you guidance. As you know, I'm a kingmaker. I'm a kingmaker, meaning every student that I taught, if they follow my guidance, they become kings. As I said, if President Trump followed my recommendation in this show, he would have won by a landslide. He would have probably won nearly 50 states with a landslide, with no close margin. Um, because I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. Um, but that's just the way it is. I don't know why God has prepared me to be the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. As I said, I wasn't preparing to become expert in many of the fields that I became an expert in, but God guided me that way, right? Um, but God chooses whom He wants to choose. So I'm thankful to be chosen by God for this particular purpose, um, to provide you with the guidance you need to survive. Because God is a loving God, so obviously God has prepared someone to provide you with the guidance that will allow you to survive. When Dr. Fauci was saying, don't wear a mask, I was saying, wear a mask. You know how many people died because Dr. Fauci said, don't wear a mask? That Dr. Gupta said, don't wear a mask? Yeah, there are thousands who died because of the recommendation by Dr. Gupta in CNN and Dr. Fauci and CDC that you should not wear a mask. Thousands who died in March and April. I mean, I'm not trying to blame Dr. Fauci or Dr. Gupta. As I said, they're not the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. So, they can get things wrong more frequently. Um, and, you gotta take things as it is, right? Not everybody can be Leonardo da Vinci, you know? Um, that's just life, right? Um, yeah, so, today I thought I would reflect on the theme of night, because night is descending upon America. There's over 2,000 people die every day now. Um, by next week, we may have over 5,000 people die. Because it's doubled, right? It was like 1,000 deaths per day, and now it's like over 2,000 deaths per day. So the death has doubled, and it's going to double again. So 2,000, let's say 300 now, it's going to double to like 4,600, right? It doubles, right? It increases in the doubling way. And then 4,600 will eventually become 10,000. So that could happen in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks. Um, so that's what we're looking at. That's why, 10,000 deaths will probably easily pass in December. And I'm predicting that we can actually have up to 30,000 Americans die per day in December. Because, once you hit 10,000, if that doubles, it's 20,000. And as you know, we have like 6 more months of flu season left. Can you imagine it doubling again and again every so often, every so few days? Yeah, we're looking at something of catastrophic proportions right now. So we have November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June. So we have 8 months to go, technically. And that could double every so often. That is possible. You may have like 1 or 2 or 3, 4 days of lull, but that doesn't mean the pattern has been broken. Because there could be always irregularities in the pattern, but the overall pattern can remain the same. That it doubles every X number of days. Um, that could happen until June. So that's why I have night. But night can be beautiful. Um, and you see these beautiful buildings. In the center, you have the church in Gdansk, where I went for worship service. Next to that, you have above the trigger, you have the train station in Gdansk, central train station, and you have another different view of the train station from a different street there, next to the cross. Um, at Gdansk, they were having the summer festival, so there were a lot of performances, street performances. It was a lot of fun in Gdansk. So I went to one of those night concerts, free concerts there. As you know, we're doing Bachelor in Poland, so this is part of that Bachelor in Poland show that's become part of this. Um, so today I'm introducing you to Aneta, and I've introduced her before. Annette, Aneta, I met her in the evening uh, as the sun went down and the moon was coming up. And yeah, I mean, I felt like we had, instant attraction. I had an instant attraction. I think she did too, Um, I mean, she's pretty, I think she's really pretty. Um, so, yeah, um, yeah. And I was planning to see her again, and, had I gone back to Poland if there weren't COVID. But, we have COVID. But she's one of the bachelorettes, and she's very attractive. She's 100% Polish. I like Polish women; they're very beautiful. Um, and they're devout Christians, many of them, and I like that. And they're very family oriented. That's which is also a strong plus. Um, so now we have 12,589,221 confirmed cases. And death is at 259,880. Yeah, I mean it's pretty bad. Um, I'm predicting that by June, United States will have 3 million to maybe 30 million deaths from COVID. Obviously, there's going to be other deaths too. People who die of heart attacks, people who die of cancer. Um, but I'm just counting the COVID-19 deaths. There'll be 3 million to 30 million COVID-19 deaths. But with the COVID-19 death, you may have like 2 million cancer deaths, or maybe more than that, because every year about 1.5 million people are diagnosed with cancer. 1.5 million or to 2 million. So over a 10-year period, you can have close to 20 million people having cancer. And every year, several hundred thousand to a million die of cancer. Um, but at any given time, you have over 10 million cancer patients. Um, or, some have gone into remission. So let's say, you have a situation where 5 million cancer patients die, not related to COVID. It's possible. And, heart attack, a lot of the people who have heart attack survive because they get to hospital in time. With COVID-19, these who would have survived were there not COVID will not survive. So we may have like a couple million people die of heart conditions, not just heart attack, but like, some kind of heart palpitation, you know, some kind of heart problem, heart disease can cause death. So, if you add all the death together, if we have 30 million COVID deaths, we could have like 50 million or more deaths by June. That's possible. Hopefully, it won't happen. Um, but it's really bad. And look at the numbers for Europe. Deaths are spiking aggressively in Europe. They're all headed to 100,000. France may pass 100,000 deaths before the end of December, maybe even mid-December. They may pass 100,000 before middle of December. Um, yeah, let's see. Because remember, it's an exponential growth. So France is number one in Europe in terms of cases, with 2,206,126, and the death is 50,324. And number two is Russia, 2,120,836, and the death is at 36,675. Spain is number three, 1,594,844, and the death is at 43,668. Number four is United Kingdom, with 1,542,611 cases, 55,935 deaths. Italy has 1,455,022 cases, 51,306 deaths. Um, so the deaths are pretty bad, and it's spiking. So some people think like people will close down. Some people are, but other people are having this reaction where they're saying, "Screw it," you know. If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. So you have two different reactions to what is going on. People who don't deny it, people who recognize that this is going on, and they see the reality as it is, that these people are dying, and they agree that this is happening, and they understand that this is dangerous. So among people who recognize the danger of COVID-19, that you have two different reactions. Obviously, there's more than two different reactions, but two major reactions. That is, you have a group that kind of clamps down in order to survive. These are what I call the survivalists. The survivalists among us, they go into lockdown position on their own initiative. And these are survivors. They have struggled in life and they've survived, and their primary goal is to survive. Um, and they just generally find ways to clamp down. Some of them struggle with balancing economic considerations and survival, because before COVID, economic success was tied to survival for many survivors. But during COVID, they can be diametrically opposed, right? Because if you work, you have higher chance of getting COVID, you could die, right? Um, so the food chain directed survival mode has been shifted, right, to a survival mode of a prey who can be eaten by a predator. And so you have the survivor group who are trying to survive by evading or avoiding COVID-19. That's one group. Another group, and it varies in degree, the other group says, I don't care. I will wear a mask when I have to, but if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. I don't care. Screw it. So you have that group. Um, so we have these two groups right now in America. Um, and I would say, it's probably 50-50. Um, one group may grow bigger than the other, depending on the circumstances. But now I think it's more like 50-50. And these are people who don't deny that COVID-19 is dangerous. These are people who understand that it's killing 2,300 people every day. They understand that fully. Um, Because you know what they say. If you corner a mouse, if a cat corners a mouse, even the mouse will fight the cat until death. You know, it's the survival. If you corner a mouse, flee or fight, that flight has been taken away. There's nowhere for him to go because he's been cornered. So he has to fight, right? Fight or flight instinct, right, exists in every living organism. Um, but if you block off the flight, if they can't flee, then they only have the fight instinct left. And you've kind of known the spirit of Alamo, right? Alamo, remember the Alamo. People knew they were going to die, but they fought to death anyway because they had no choice. They were cornered. In certain civilizations, they have been able to artificially produce that. And we see that in the code of Bushido among the samurai warriors of Japan. So, although they have a chance of fleeing, they see that as disgraceful, and any warrior who flees will have to dismember himself because of the disgrace that he brought to himself and the code of Bushido. So, although they can flee, they won't flee, right? And they have kind of created a mechanism where they won't flee by requiring suicide by very painful means of samurai warriors who flee, right? And it's called Bushido. And the Empire of Japan in World War II was able to kind of transition that Bushido concept into kamikazes, right? These warriors who are willing to die um, to achieve a successful invasion of the United States. They almost succeeded, but they thankfully failed, um, mostly because of the atom bomb. They committed mass genocide against Japanese civilians with Hiroshima and Nagasaki atom bombs. That's what ended the war. Without us having committed the genocide in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the war would not have ended. Yeah, the United States intentionally used a weapon of mass destruction in civilian targets, right, to kill as many civilians as possible to end the war. So, U.S. military intentionally committed genocide to win the war, right? Let's be honest here, that's what happened. And you're not going to find most Americans who are going to apologize. I would say 90% of Americans, both Republican and Democrat, they're not going to apologize for having used genocide to win the war, World War World War II. Um, right? Life is like that. That's why General Patton says war is hell. You know, the decent people in America had no qualms about using a genocide against innocent civilians in another country because we are at war with that country. And that summarizes human experience in a sense over a long period of time. Whenever you go to war, that's what happens, right? What do you think happens in a war? Do you think you have handshake and have arm wrestling? So human history can be summed up um, with the concept of survival, right? Um, yeah, people want to survive, and often that survival requires, in some mindset, Lebensraum that justifies the genocide. In other contexts, we are at war, so genocide is justified. We have the right to drop atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, targeting innocent civilians, children, women, elderly. with one atom bomb dropped in Hiroshima, killing every one of them because we were at war, right? So human civilizations justify genocide in wartime, you know? And we did it, United States did it in World War II. Germany did it in World War II, using different language, different target groups. But it's the same way of looking at the world, right? Looking at survival, right? Both the United States and Germany felt genocide was necessary to survive. So, in a sense, in a qualitative level, we are the same. Germany in World War II and the United States in World War II, we are the same. We both committed genocide, right? We did it quickly in America because of two atom bombs, right? Canada Dry. Canada's really good. Um, Everybody likes to take that tone holier than thou, but let's be honest here. We committed genocide willingly, and majority of Americans will do it again. You know, over 90% of Americans will do it again. We're in the same situation. Nothing has changed. Genocide is justified in war, in the mindset um, of most people around the world. You know, it's just they don't want to be the target of genocide. But they will do it. Look at Israel. I mean, look at the way they treated Palestinians. You know, they, I mean, they carried out. You know, if Palestinians fought Israel, if they had the means to fight, they're peaceful people. But you know, um, if they had a war between Palestinian people and Israeli people, then I'm sure they would have had no problem, bulldozing their houses and making them homeless and even killing their families. Um, it's just war is hell, as General Patton said. Yeah. So the reason that we are talking about this is whenever you are cornered, you will fight, whether you're a tiger or a mouse or a human being. And so, like Alamo, remember the Alamo. I think that's a very important thing for you to keep in mind. Remember the Alamo. Um, and that's part of American history, right? We, United States of America, felt cornered in the sense we got attacked in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we felt like we needed to use genocide to end this war, to reduce the pain and death levels for our own citizens, right? We willingly embrace genocide to protect our own citizens in World War II against Empire of Japan. Um, so people reach a point of screw it, you know, they don't care, they're just gonna do it. And you see that being reached in many different nations for different reasons. Um, you know, um, American Revolution is an example of that, right? The Brits kept taxing us, and American citizens just got fed up, and they said, "Screw it." You know, British Empire had the greatest military in that time, right? British military was the greatest. It's not like screw it, a bunch of farmers saying screw it and stuff fighting the greatest military in the world, right? Um, People reach that point. At some point, people say screw it and they'll just fight you until the end. And that's why the American Revolution was all about, right? It's about fight to the end, you know. And many of us died in the Revolutionary War, and that was kind of like the mentality, of the French Revolution, right? And that was the mentality of the Russian Revolution. Citizens can reach a point where they say, screw it, and then no government can block them. No military can block them. Because at the end of the day, military is made up of citizens. If citizens are fed up, there are people going to be in the military who are fed up. You know what I mean? They're part of the population. Um, you may take sampling from this group and that group. You may have stratified sampling, but there's going to be commonality in the sampling if there's reliability of a phenomenon, regardless of where you take the sample. And that's why, French Revolution had soldiers and police officers joining the revolution against the monarch, against the rulers. Obviously, it would not have succeeded if the military kept siding with the rulers. Same with the Bolshevik Revolution, right? At a certain point, the military, the FBI, CIA, Homeland Security, NSA, Secret Service, um, U.S. Marshal, they all side with the citizens against the rulers. And then, revolution is victorious. So, it's a ruler's voice never get it. They don't always understand um, that there are points of no return with citizens. And sometimes some rulers, if they're unwise, they keep pushing it, pushing that limit. Obviously, smart rulers know when to stop. Um, and that reduces the tension, and then uh, you don't have a revolution. But revolution are often not planned. They're spontaneous. And that's why they talk about zeitgeist, right? Spirit of the age. Like individual minds think individually, but somehow they all are thinking in a similar way without even communicating with each other. And it happens like spontaneous like that. So we have a lot of examples like that in history, which is quite interesting. Um, there are three articles here, and it also illustrates this idea. They're the survivors who want to clamp down, and then there are those who are like, screw it. If I get COVID, I'll get COVID. I'm going to do what I excuse me need to do. You can't control them. People are people. Uh, Human beings are rational beings, and they make rational decisions as individuals. You can't control people. You could try to enslave them, but you often do not succeed. Yeah, I mean, coercion never works because at some point, people are going to say, screw it. What are you going to do when somebody says screw it? You know, and if people say screw it, what are you going to do? If FBI agents say screw it, we're not going to follow directions. CIA agents say screw it, we're not going to follow directions. What are you going to do? Um, so, yeah, wise ruler knows, you know, what the citizens want, right? Or at least come to a close approximation to what the people want. But unwise rulers, they push their will beyond the breaking point, and then you can't control anything. Because if FBI agents, CIA agents, Homeland Security agents, U.S. Marshals, Secret Services screw it, what are you going to do? You've lost your legitimacy. And so in history, we talk about legitimacy. So legitimacy is different from power. It is power, but it's not really power. Let's say you're the president of the United States, so you have power, right? You're the president, But if the president loses his legitimacy to rule, meaning, let's say, more than 50% of the population, let's say 70% of the population says you should not rule, and then it goes to 80%, it goes to 90%, um, that president will probably be overthrown. You see what I mean? In one form or another. Um, and that's the scary part because you don't know when that's going to happen, but it can happen. And that's why it happens in history, you know. You had in India, um, you had a Secret Service take out his Secret Service revolver and shoot the president in India. It was the prime minister, president of India. Yeah, he's the own bodyguard. And you have things like this happen. You know, I've talked about Julius Caesar, right? Who was the emperor of, or primus inter pares, you know, first among equals of the Roman Empire, the emperor. He walked into the Senate and he got stabbed to death by all the senators. Because at some point they said, screw it. And Julius Caesar was the most popular leader in the history of Rome, right? You know, all the military was loyal to him, right? Even the military was loyal to him, he lost the control of his 100% of the Senate, basically. Um, and that's because you know, people say he stopped respecting the religion of the country, Rome, and that pissed off a lot of people. Because people are very religious. Wherever you go, people are that way. Because you know, as you know, Julius Caesar started having sex with Cleopatra of Egypt. In Egypt, they have different gods than Rome. Rome, they have a pantheon, and people are very tied to their Roman gods, and they even pray to Roman gods at home. Had like crucifixes, you know, what's including the crucifixes at home. And when Julius Caesar turned his back on his nation's dominant religion, um, people were not happy about it. But I guess majority of the senators were angry enough that they, you know, and I guess, you know, you got to remember, they must have calculated, meaning, although Julius Caesar had the loyalty of the army, it must have been fallen. And these senators are politicians. They would not have done what they had done if they thought after they killed Julius Caesar, um, you know, the Roman army would come and kill them all. You know what I mean? So in their calculation, they felt like the Roman military had lost their loyalty to Julius Caesar enough that even though the senators stabbed Julius Caesar in the Senate chamber, they would not suffer consequence that is negative. Right? That's something they probably come up with to carry out what they did. Right? So it happened over a long period of time. And the love affair between um, Julius Caesar and Cleopatra happened over a long period of time. The problem was the parade, right? Um, People knew that Julius Caesar had a lover, Cleopatra, and many knew that he had a bastard child, Caesarea, with Cleopatra. But when Julius Caesar actually brought her to Rome and paraded her and their bastard son, you know, it angered Romans in ways that they may not have comprehended. You know, it's crime of passion, you know, the term crime of passion. They get angry in ways they themselves didn't think they would get that angry. And I guess that's what happened with the senators too. Um, you gotta be very careful about what you flaunt in public. You know, if you're a ruler, um, you know what they say. You need to keep up appearances, right? This is a Christian nation. If you don't keep up appearances that this is a Christian nation, um, then you put yourself in danger. You know, because people are not going to do anything if they feel secure and safe, right? Right? They know America is Christian. If they feel secure and safe that America is a Christian country, they don't feel the need to rise up. Because they're not feeling like something that is most important to them is to be taken away, right? Um, but once you start like trying to persuade everybody, like America's not a Christian nation anymore, then you're pissing off a lot of people, you know, and they're gonna ask, you know. Um, I understand this phenomena because I'm a historian. I've studied it in the Roman Empire. I've studied it in the Greek Empire. I've studied the Babylonian Empire. I've studied it in the Jewish kingdom of Israel. I've studied it in Germany, England. These are phenomena that are common to all civilizations. When you go out of your way to try to force people to abandon their presuppositions, their prejudices about what their nation is, then you're asking to be destroyed, whichever group you're with. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can put our name in there. Um, because once you start messing with people's fundamental prejudices, core identity issues, you know, you're asking for a fight, whether you think you're asking for a fight or not. Um, and that's the problem with unwise rulers. They never understand when they're doing things uh, that's going to end up with their demise, Um, it's what I call, fatal error or miscalculation in history. And some people make that. Even the brilliant ones, like Julius Caesar was brilliant. He thought he was above everything, that his following was loyal to him no matter what he did. Right? He assumed that. And we call that hubris, right? In history, hubris is defined as pride that angers the gods, but that's how it was defined basically by the Greeks who believe in the gods. But it's a kind of, I would define it as a sense of security in one's own power, right? That's what I would say. Like rulers who think they are secure in their power enough that they could do X, Y, and Z without repercussions. Um, at some point, if they push enough, if they go beyond a certain limit, that the invisible line that they don't know where it is, that's when the things can happen that could really be history changing, right? And we call that legitimacy. There's this invisible line where the legitimacy can be lost. Obviously, it's invisible, so nobody knows exactly where that is. It's not an exact science. Um, but obviously, historians looking back can say, oh, there was the line, right? Because it already happened. But it's hard to predict into the future where that line is. Um, so Thanksgiving, we see that Dr. Fauci's magic disappeared. Nobody listened to Dr. Fauci. Now, what does that mean? It could have repercussions for Dr. Fauci in the future. The fact that people ignore Dr. Fauci's advice, right? Anybody who's a parent knows, like, if you tell people your children not to do this and they're doing it, at certain amount, at certain point, your authority is gone. right? So a smart parent tries to calculate, right? So they don't say don't do this. Um, if they think the children are going to keep violating it, even if they don't want them to, because at a certain point they know that their parental authority will be gone, right? Uh, think of it in a larger context of a nation, right? Uh, if enough people don't follow your direction, then you no longer have authority by definition. It's what we call de facto loss of power or de facto loss of authority or legitimacy. So power potestas, autoritas, which is authority, or your kind of sense of command, um, and legitimacy are all kind of intertwined. But you can have legitimacy without the potestas, actual power, like military power. Um, but generally, you cannot have legitimacy without autoritas, which is what we call the moral legitimacy or the authority to rule. And in the Constitution, they talk about it as we the people, the consent of the people. Um, and that's an invisible line because you don't know when you have consent and when you have lost consent, right? Because it's not exact science. Um, Today's title is COVID-19 USA, Thanksgiving, How Different? Because I think this illustrates a little bit this concept of autoritas, this context of potestas. And so let's dive in. First article: long lines form at food banks across country on Thanksgiving. Now I'm a historian, so when I just read the title, a flag goes up, a very bright red flag goes up. Long lines form at food banks across country ahead of Thanksgiving. Now, Thanksgiving is a holiday where people are giving thanks. You don't want people to be angry or resentful on Thanksgiving because it's one day out of 365 days a year. You want your citizens to be thankful. Uh, Discontent of the citizens, that's a scary thing. Um, so long lines are formed at food banks across the country. How do you think they feel? Let me just ask you that. Mr. Biden, Mr. Trump, how do you think they feel as they stand there in long line to get a handout for food? Do you know what Irish Catholics think of handouts? Have you asked an Irish Catholic? Have you tried to give a handout to an Irish Catholic, working class individual? You have to be Irish Catholic to understand how that feels, right? If you're not Irish Catholic working class, you're not going to understand what a concept of handout means to an Irish Catholic working class individual. You see what I'm saying? So now you have all these people standing in line to get a handout. How do you think they feel? Put yourself in their shoes. You see, as a historian, I see deeper than mere letters here. Like CNN glosses over this like it's non-consequential, right? Most news media treats this as, oh, there are poor people who are struggling with finances. That's how they see it because they're not expert historians like I am. I'm an expert historian, so I see beyond the mere facade, right? Journalists, they're not experts in history. They're like tabloids. They're media. They're there on TV or they write stuff. the popular consumer, they're not really good at analysis. They don't look at things in a deep way or with the historical eye. They're not experts. Um, so red flags should be going off when you read this title, and you have to try to see it from the perspective of the citizen. What's going on here? Um, you know, um, when I saw Ted Cruz say, "Well, let's not give stimulus checks to American citizens," that's when I knew that he could never be president of the United States, because people will remember that he will never win. He will never become president. Um, one thing that you have to understand about humanity is everybody likes gifts. There's no human being who doesn't like gifts. When you try to take a gift away from someone, you're never going to be popular. You know, I mean, right? I mean, if you don't want to give a gift, you can pretend like you're doing something else, right? But if you deliberately prevent a gift from going to people, you're you're not going to be popular, right? The way that rulers have ruled is by keeping up appearances. So if you see like Robin Hood movies or movies with a king tries to pretend like he's a generous king, and whenever there's a national celebration or festival, if you see movies of medieval kingdoms, king generally gives something to everybody, the whole citizenry, right? Maybe a little bit of something, uh, to show that he's a generous king. Because obviously that's the perception you want to give. But this is why I said to President Trump, you need to give them second stimulus check, because for thousands of years, popular kings are kings who are able to either be generous in reality or keep up appearances that they are generous, right? If you don't have that image, you're never gonna get the support of the people. You have to look like you're generous, right? If you look like you're not generous, then you're not gonna have the loyalty or the love of the citizens. Um, so you know, because that's how you show that you have power. So there are three things, right? When a king or a ruler gives something tangible to the citizens, it proves that the king or the ruler has power in the minds of people. Oh, he gave me this, or I got this when he was king, or he is king, or he's president. So he is the one who's giving me this. He has power. He is worthy of my respect, but more importantly, because respect is that important, my loyalty. And they may think this in a conscious way, or it may be subconscious, right? Or it may even be unconscious. Um, but you need that, right? And that's why I encourage President Trump to get the stimulus check out. I was trying to help him win, obviously. Um, and Nancy Pelosi knew that if the stimulus check goes out, second one, however, by executive order, by some kind of agreement, doesn't matter. Nancy Pelosi knew that there was no way any Democrat could beat Trump. And that's why Nancy Pelosi said 3 million. She gave a figure that she knew nobody would agree with. It was a deliberate political act. I saw through it. Unfortunately, Mitch McConnell did not, and Trump did not. Life is like that. There are a few decisions that can seal your fate. When President Trump did not get the stimulus check out, um, before election, I was thinking, maybe he will lose. Um, because you're going to have a reaction. If there's no stimulus check, people are going to think, well, you don't really have power. Because if you really have power, how to count my stimulus check? So if you don't have power, why should I respect you, one? Or why should I be loyal to you? You know? I mean, it could have been that Ted Cruz was getting back at President Trump because they ran against each other for Republican primaries, and Ted Cruz lost to President Trump. So Ted Cruz is a smart man. He went to Harvard Law School, graduated top in his class. So maybe it was his revenge. He wanted President Trump to lose. You know, people do all kinds of things, right? Um, People don't always act in the interest of the party. People have self-interest, and also people have individual scores to settle, right? Anybody who's worked in a group dynamic knows there's many different issues at play. And obviously, Ted Cruz had a score to settle. Number one, he lost to Trump. That alone is an issue. Um, so obviously, President Trump should have seen through it. That when Ted Cruz says no stimulus check at all cost, Ted Cruz is actually brilliant, as an individual. I mean, Harvard Law School, he's smart. And he's a lawyer, so he's very calculated. And he may have wavered between like wanting a Republican to win in the 2020 election and his desire to see President Trump humiliated on a national level. He may have wavered back and forth, even unconsciously or subconsciously, or perhaps consciously. People are not simple. You know, Ted Cruz was humiliated by President Trump when he lost. After all those years in politics, his experience as a senator, and he lost to this guy who's like what, TV reality show star? Like that's what Ted Cruz is probably thinking. You know, you are fired. And Ted Cruz is like, oh man, I feel like I'm fired. Because, I didn't win this primary. I lost. I mean, if I had lost to Jeb Bush or somebody, a political dynasty, at least I say face. But I lost to someone who's never been in politics, who is in a TV show. So Ted Cruz probably felt humiliated. And he wanted to humiliate Trump. I mean, I understand all these because I'm a historian. Everything makes sense to me. Uh, like when second stimulus check was up and it was about to pass, Ted Cruz said no. Why do you think he did that? It was personal. It was deeply personal. He knew that if stimulus check passed, then President Trump would win by a landslide in every state, or nearly every state, because everybody's going to get a check. Um, and Ted Cruz knows this. Um, Unfortunately, Donald Trump did not see through that, and Team Trump, they're all idiots. Like 90% of them are idiots. They probably don't even know what the heck happened. Um, yeah, but I mean, it was predictable that he was positioned to win by a landslide, and he made some fatal errors because President Trump could have issued an executive order. And the reason that President Trump did not issue the executive order is because Nancy Pelosi threw threw a cow first time check went out with his signature because Nancy Pelosi knew the political implications. She's been in politics for what, 40 years, all her life. She understood the political implications. Trump did not. So the error that Trump made was he should have said, I'm just gonna say screw it. I'm gonna issue the second executive, second stimulus checks on my own through an executive order. That's what he should have done. Um, I don't care what they're gonna say. I don't care if they impeach me. I'm just gonna do it. They would have won the election by a landslide, just on that one decision. The saying, "No guts, no glory." You have to do the things that are going to get you the victory. You got to be focused, pinpointed on the victory. If you're not pinpointed on the victory, if you're looking around and that's all you care about, you're going to fail. Because we're filled, we're a country filled with geniuses, right? Ted Cruz is a genius. He has his personal agenda, right? In his mind, it's like we can't afford to have 4 years of Biden, and then I'll run and to become president in 2024. But you're not going to win, Ted. I'm sorry, but nobody's going to vote for somebody who blocks stimulus. Okay? Um, yeah, so that's your fatal flaw. Your hatred of Trump, your desire to humiliate Trump, blinded you to the consequences it will cause in the long run to you. People don't forget things like that. Because the saying, people don't remember what you said to them, but people remember how that made them feel. You know that saying? So, they're going to remember how it felt when Ted Cruz blocked stimulus checks so they didn't get their stimulus check. They're not going to forget that feeling, especially they stand in long line at food banks across the country ahead of Thanksgiving. They're not going to forget that. That's why Ted Cruz, you're never going to be president in America. Unfortunately, because I like you, Ted, but you can't make fatal flaws like that in life. Certainly not in politics. Um, yeah. I mean, when you're focused on revenge, you make mistakes like that. Um, and maybe Ted Cruz said, "I don't care as long as I humiliate Donald Trump, and as long as he loses your 2020 election, I don't care if I don't become president." Maybe he calculated all this. He is a lawyer after all. Lawyers are very calculated. He thinks several steps ahead. Lawyers think like in chess game. Obviously Donald Trump is not a lawyer, so he doesn't know how lawyers think. But it's a fatal flaw. Simple rule of thumb is if you give them people favor, they're gonna like you. If you don't give people favor, they're gonna hate you. Uh, that's a simple rule of thumb in any setting. I think that, I mean, obviously we explain it in complicated terms, soft power, hard power, you know, um, but life is really actually very simple. Um, but obviously we make it very complicated. So, when the stimulus checks did not go out, you know, ideally people vote on principle. That's ideal. But people are emotional beings. So people don't always vote based on their ideals or beliefs or ideology. Right? People are affected by how they feel. Like if people feel like, oh, that's not fair, then you're screwed. Because it doesn't matter whether you have good ideas or not. If people are like, that's not fair, that's not, you know, then you're screwed. Um, or that was too much, then you're screwed. Because people are emotions always trump any kind of principle. Um, you know, um, yeah. Um, so let's go to the significant quote here. Americans are lining up in historic numbers at food banks across the country. This is why you needed to give the stimulus check. This was happening in August. This was happening in September. This was happening in in November, right? I mean, Team Trump, they're made up of rich people, so they can't see what the significance of this is, and they're not historians. So you can be rich, but as long as you're a good historian, you can understand what's going on. I obviously I'm an expert historian. Um, so when people are lining up, the thing to do is give them a check. I mean, geez, I mean, when you like getting a bonus, who doesn't like getting a bonus? I mean, it's just a simple concept, right? If you want people to vote for you, you gotta you gotta take care of them. You know what I mean? Why should people vote for you if you don't take care of them? You know what I'm saying? Um, so Americans are lining up in historical numbers at food banks across the country this week as COVID-19 pandemic exacerbates levels of food insecurity for millions of people. As Thanksgiving holiday draws closer, new reports from states around the U.S. indicate that more Americans face food security now than at any time in recent decades. Video obtained by CNN on Tuesday from the Meadowlands Entertainment Complex in New Jersey. It's happening in New Jersey, which is a wealthy state. Phil Murphy should be worried. Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey. Uh, New Jersey showed residents waiting for several hours to obtain packaged boxes of meals for Thanksgiving holiday. So we're not talking about homeless people here. We're talking about middle class Americans who are feeling humiliated that they have to take handouts, right? Because they desperately need it. And Phil Murphy, New Jersey governor, is doing nothing about it. This is not even an issue for him. He thinks that it's just the poor people, but it's not just the poor people. It's middle class right now. This is happening to the middle class. Um, yeah, like these politicians are so out of touch. Phil Murphy, who's a Democratic governor in New Jersey, he's out of touch. Tom Wolf, Democrat governor of Pennsylvania, he's out of touch. All the Democrats, senators, Democrats, congressmen, they're all out of touch right now. They don't understand that this is not poor people. These are middle class Americans who are suffering because of COVID. Because most middle class Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Um, yeah, 1 month to 1 month. That's when 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Um, yeah, I mean, some middle class people have higher mortgages. Some middle class people have lower mortgages, but they're living paycheck to paycheck, literally. Um, yeah, I mean, if you don't understand that about America, maybe you should not be in politics, really. Second article, millions of Americans traveling for Thanksgiving ignoring CDC advice. Um, for me, I would never tell people not to celebrate Thanksgiving because people are not robots. People are emotional beings. Um, People have needs, emotional needs, especially in time of trouble. In time of national tragedy, people have emotional needs. Um, so, I mean, I would recommend people celebrate Thanksgiving just by, like within their home with their own children, but it's hard to control that. Millions of Americans are ignoring the advice of public health experts and traveling for their Thanksgiving holiday. So these are people, some of whom know that they're risking their lives. They're doing it because, some of them are like, well, I don't know what's going to happen to my relatives. You know, um, so people are emotional beings. Um, that's why sometimes people act irrationally. Um, In my opinion, it's better to lock down for a whole month and allow people to get together for Thanksgiving and allow people to get together for Christmas. Just kind of even lift everything up. I think that's better than half closing and then try to lock down on like Christmas or Thanksgiving because that's going to anger everybody. You have to be smart in life, you know? Yes, a lot of people are going to be infected in Thanksgiving. Yes, a lot of people are going to be infected in Christmas. There's no question about it. But you have to weigh several factors. You're not just, this is where like health experts can't always understand what people need, right? Because they're just thinking about health needs. Why do you think people smoke? If health needs are the most important thing, why are there people smoking now, even though they know smoking kills? Why? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you need to understand there are reasons why people don't comply with health regulations, even though they know that that's what they should do. Um, so for me, if I were governor of New Jersey, I would actually lock the whole state down completely and then give them like 1 or 2 or 3 days of Thanksgiving when they're free. You know, I think that's a better way to control COVID than having it open, like semi-open, because semi-open, yeah, it will reduce a little bit, but not significantly. Shutting things completely down, well, and then you kind of let them, give them like 2, 3 days of Thanksgiving to relax. Shut it down again. That's what I would do if I were the governor. Um, because people were like, well, he shut it down, but he opened it up for Thanksgiving, so it balances out. It's like you gotta understand management. If you don't, it seems like a lot of these governors don't understand simple principles of management of human beings, management of human resources, and that's the problem, right? Um, you gotta be able to manage people well. Um, I mean, you have to reduce COVID-19 death, right? So you need to prioritize that, but there are certain things you cannot touch, like Christmas, you cannot touch. You know what I mean? There are certain things you cannot touch, even if they're risk. You can't, so you gotta balance things because people have their needs, and governors govern with the consent of the people, right? So you gotta be able to balance, things effectively, and the Democratic governors are not doing it very well right now. So millions of Americans are ignoring the advice of public health experts and traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday. The Transportation Security Administration reported that more than 1.4 million, 1.04 million people went through airport security checkpoint on Sunday. One day, you had a million people traveling. So technically, all 1 million people could get infected in one day. It's possible. It's cramped up in a plane. Um, Sunday, the most since mid-March. Uh, and about 1 million more went through TSA checkpoints each day on Friday and Saturday. What I would have done if I were the governor, yeah, I would have done a lot of N95 masks and required everybody flying on the plane to wear an N95 mask to protect them from getting COVID. I would have had that all ready months before, anticipating that millions would fly on Thanksgiving. What do you think? People are going to not fly and visit their relatives and loved ones, which is like once a year? Is that what you're expecting, Governor Phil Murphy? Um, you have to calculate what people are going to do, and then you have to calculate how we can help them, right? You have to be people centered. You gotta anticipate what people are going to do. Obviously, you gotta understand people. and then you provide support to help them while they're doing what they're going to do. You see what I mean? What are you going to do? Like restrain them, tie them to their beds? You see what I'm saying? You know you can't restrain them, right? Um, then how are you going to help them without restraining them to not get COVID in a 6 hour flight? You need to put an N95 mask or one of those respirators on them. Obviously, they have self interest, so they will be willing to put it on, most of them. So you need to calculate what the people need and what you need to do to reduce COVID-19 death. Did 95 masks go in any airport? No. None of the governors were prepared. You see what I'm saying? Your state is a mess because of you, governors. Let's be honest here. You should have had 90 N95 masks, like 5 million to 10 million ready for this holiday season flights. Keep them free and have them wear. Because airborne precautions, regular masks are not protected from airborne particles. Now you may have 1 million people getting infected per day, and it'll be your fault, fault of the government. But it's not just your fault because Dr. Fauci and CDC, they're supposed to anticipate these things. But they're not historians. You see why my predictions are more accurate? Because I don't just look at the disease. I don't expect everybody to be compliant, right? Majority of the people will be non-compliant. Um, and then you gotta try to see how you can save them, expecting them to be non-compliant. You see what I'm saying? Um, so you know, the problem is a lot of the people who are scientists, they act in a bubble. They're like, don't smoke. If you don't smoke, you're not gonna die. Yes, of course. But what are you gonna do? Like lock people up so that they won't smoke? You see what I'm saying? Um, you have to do certain things, expecting certain things to be done. I mean, obviously there will be people who are flying who won't wear their mask. But if there are 10 people out of 100 not wearing a mask and they have COVID and they're coughing away, obviously if you just have a regular mask, you're going to get COVID, get infected with COVID. But if you have an N95 mask on, there's a 95% chance they won't get COVID if it's worn properly. So you gotta work with factors that you can control. You cannot control certain factors. You know, and this is why the prayer of Saint Francis is important. You know, Lord, help me to understand that there are things that I cannot control. Right? I mean, you know that prayer. I'm paraphrasing. Um, yeah, but we're headed to at least 3 million deaths in June because of these fatal errors that should not be happening. It's all about planning. Um, life is about planning, right? 80% of your life is about planning, right? Um, if you plan your life well, that solves 80% of your life problems. Um, yeah. You see why this show is important? Without this show, where would the governors be? Where would Phil Murphy be? Phil Murphy should be watching this show every day. He needs it. So does Tom Wolf, the Pennsylvania governor. The Transportation Security Administration reported more than 1.04 million people went through airport security checkpoint on Sunday, the most since mid-March. And about 1 million more went through TSA checkpoint each day on Friday and Saturday. So in 3 days, we have 3 million people who went through the checkpoints without N95 masks, most of them, unless they brought it on their own. The numbers are still less than half those for travelers. who flew last year on commercial flights. So 50% of last year flew. But this year's figures suggest airports are more crowded and planes fuller than they've been at any time since the pandemic began. See, they should have, every one of them should have been wearing an N95 mask or like one of those respirators. With those things sticking up, plastic respirators. Obviously, if you're flying on your own, just get one of those for yourself, protect yourself. But this is a public health issue, so government should provide the N95 masks on planes. Because where are private citizens supposed to find them or get them? They're pretty expensive. But obviously, having COVID-19 death among the residents in New Jersey, that's far more expensive than coughing up 20, $30 for a respirator. President Trump, First Lady, this is the third article, Melania Trump pardons Thanksgiving turkey, an annual White House tradition. Annual traditions still have to go on. Doesn't matter if there's COVID-19, doesn't matter if there's 2,000 people dying per day, doesn't matter if 1 million people die per day. Annual traditions have to go on. That's what makes a culture. That's what makes a country. That's what makes human beings. These cultural practices. So President Trump is good about that. A significant quote, the holiday season may be a bit quieter this year as many make changes to mitigate the risk of COVID-19, but Americans can still expect a time-honored White House tradition to be carried out. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump participated in the annual pardoning of the national Thanksgiving turkey in the White House Rose Garden Tuesday afternoon. That's today. You should thank God that this show exists, COVID-19 Update by Heerak, because I give you insights that you probably never thought about, right? And I'm talking to you, Governor Northam. I'm talking to you, Governor Murphy. I'm talking to you, Governor Wolf. I'm talking to you, Governor Cuomo. You need to watch this show every day, seriously. Because the way you're managing your state, you're going to have like million deaths in each of your states by June 2021. Do you doubt it? Really? Look at the numbers in your state. I care about your residents. I care about you too. Although I think all of you should repent for supporting abortion because that's baby killing and it's wrong. God hates that. And also, obviously, gay marriage is against God's law. Romans chapter 1, you read it for yourself. So you should oppose those. But I care about you guys and your families and your state, millions of people who live in your state. And I understand you're not healthcare experts. So you're thinking you're doing the best you can. That's why you need to watch this show. Because I'm going to give you guidance and advice. You don't have to follow them, but you should at least be aware of them. And then you can decide whether to follow my guidance, Heerak Christian Kim's guidance, or not. So you need to hear them and then see if you should implement them or not, right? That's why you need to watch this show every day. Because the way you're managing your state right now, we may have more than 30 million people dying a month. It's a serious problem. Because, I don't blame all of you because obviously Dr. Fauci should have given you guidance. CDC should have given you guidance. FDA should have given you guidance. White House task force should have given guidance. Many of the doctors on TV should have given guidance. But many of them are not looking at the whole picture, right? They're just looking at the tree. They're not looking at the whole forest. This is the problem, right? This is where I come in. Heerak Christian Kim, candidate for U.S. Congress representation. I look at not only the trees, but the forest, right? I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century, and this is why I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. You understand? Proof is in the pudding, as Eminem says. So tune in tomorrow. I'll bring you more insights that will help you survive COVID-19 and save your children, your people. I hope that you'll be well and that your family will be well. Um, yeah, tell your friends to watch this show um, so that they will survive COVID. See you tomorrow. Bye.